Namaste, everyone. Michele Granberg here. Welcome to another episode of Positive Energy, invoking empathy and compassion for all animals and humans. Do you treasure your companion, dog, or cat? Then you will love this show. We'll be exploring the spiritual nature of beloved animals and how you can deepen your relationships through telepathy and touch. Stay where you are because Positive Energy starts right now. Positive Energy is welcoming Ann Cavallaro. Ann, welcome to Positive Energy. It's so great to have you here. You have authored 2 books. We're going to talk about those today, as well as your story. Letters to Mochi, a memoir of a good dog, and What My Dog Told Me About Healthy Eating, or Animal Communication Goes Vegan. I love those titles.
Thank you, Michelle, for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
So, your beloved companion, Mochi, passed away, but we're going to talk about her and, your books that kind of came through her, who assisted you in writing your books. So tell us about Mochi and what made her so special, what made your relationship so special. She was a Basset Hound, yes?
Yes, she was a Basset Hound, and actually, she wasn't really she was special because she wasn't special. She was just a regular dog. But she had the the sweetest personality, the sweetest disposition, and that really blended with my personality. So we had quite a bond together. But she was just very sweet, was very aware of other people and their frailty, or babies and older people. She was just such had tremendous intuitive ability.
She sounds like a special someone to me. I love her already. We know them well, right? Our beloveds. And so when you lost her, you went through pet loss, and pet loss is definitely a process. So tell me about your process, or your experience, or your journey with her loss.
Well, she lived for 15 years. We were together for 15 years, and I knew that her passing was going to be difficult, but it was much more painful than I ever imagined. And so that took a while to get through the grief. And part of my letters to Mochi was trying to deal with the fact that I could still connect with her spiritually. And that was how things came about. But it took me 5 years really or so to get, not to get past the grief, but 5 years to get another animal. So that was what it was, and it was just a learning experience too. Yeah. One of the other things was that with humans pass, you kind of know what to do. You have a funeral or whatever. With my dog, it was like I didn't really know what to do. So I had cards made. One of the big things that helped me was memorializing her.
I was just going to say that.
And that was writing a book, getting a memorial stone outside. I have a little ceremony for myself every year, and that is very, very comforting.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I'm actually a certified pet loss bereavement specialist, and exactly that is what I usually will tell people in terms of pet loss. You're never prepared, of course, and we sometimes think it'll be exactly like any other kind of loss, and it's unique. It certainly has lots of similarities with losing a human loved one. I mean,
absolutely.
In some ways, loss is loss, but in other ways, every loss is unique, and the loss of a pet, a beloved companion animal, is also unique. And it's not as accepted by society in general. It's a bit of a disenfranchised loss because not everybody understands it the way that we do, who really, really love animals. So they may brush it off, or they may minimize it, and then that hurts all over again. When people might do that. But you're right, memorializing in the form of writing, in the form of photos, in the form of stones or rituals, or a special altar in the home or out in your yard or a garden.
I have a memorial in the garden, and I make a calendar for her with her pictures every year, which is kind of interesting. And then I did start, another comforting thing was my own personal journal. And I have, I think, about 85 pages at this point. But I journal to her. I continue to write letters to her. Oh. And I find that very comforting and very interesting.
I absolutely love that. So that really leads us into, the spiritual nature of animals, the spiritual nature of Mochi. And interesting, of course, though, even though you have a strong spiritual belief in maybe the afterlife or in Mochi's spirit, it doesn't necessarily cancel out or erase the hurt, the pain, and the loss and the grief, and the mourning anyway. But there's a certain level of comfort that certainly comes with that. So I know I believe, probably as you believe, that there's so much more to this journey, and that since animals are on this journey with us, it absolutely has to include them then, meaning that they're individual souls, perhaps, and in a collective sort of experience that is divine, or is that is more expansive than we give it credit to be?
I look at it as, I believe in God, and I believe that God is love, and I believe that animals are made of love, especially dogs. We talk about unconditional love. So it makes sense that if someone is made of love, that they would go into the eternal love at the end of their life here on earth. So that's why I think that if they would definitely be with us in eternity, I have no doubt that I'm going to see Mochi in some capacity again at some time. So it makes perfect sense to me that love goes with love.
I would say the opposite doesn't make sense then.
The opposite does not. No,
if all is love, there's no absence of love.
Absolutely. It just makes sense that they would go into eternity.
Yeah.
And I do believe that there is an eternity after here, another world, and that they will be in that. They're there now. And or another terminology that people like to use today when they're crossing the rainbow bridge that we talk of as pets. But I think even not pets, but farm animals also are going to be there for us in eternity.
Yeah, because from a soul's perspective, this is just our form. I mean, this is just skin and bodies. This is a costume. And if underneath there, the essence of all of that is some spiritual essence that is infinite, that's eternal, that continues, there's really no such thing in the eyes of the soul as a cow. Different from a horse, different from a human, different from a dog, from that higher perspective.
And that we all have an identity, and I believe our animals have that identity too, that we're taking with us wherever we go.
Yes, we continue. We're recognizable, even when we shed these. In some capacity, right. And so that really engages us in such a deep conversation about our animals and gives us even more reason why we love them, because maybe we're connecting on that spiritual level, with them, and each of them have a relationship to that same God, that universe, and a purpose all their own, outside of what we have deemed is their purpose. Because humans love to assign purpose to things and to animals.
Exactly. I can't agree with you more on those.
Yeah, absolutely. So then, as we talk a little bit more about the afterlife and your idea of that, and that you still communicate with Mochi now, and then your book you communicated when Mochi was alive. Talk a little bit about animal communication as you saw it, as it was in your personal experience.
And when
both ways.
Okay. Well, as far as when Mochi was alive, we lived in the same house together, so there was a closeness there. We had without even thinking about it, we had a bond, okay? And then when it came to, at that point, when Mochi came with me, I was a pescatarian. I didn't eat meat. I ate no meat and dairy, I ate fish, and for health reasons. And at that time, I would happen to see some cows. I would be driving by, believe it or not, in Princeton we have cows. And every time I'd see these animals, I'd start thinking about, gee, that looks like my dog. My dog could be one of those cows. And I would no quicker hurt my dog than I would one of these animals. So health reasons for the way I ate went into the background. And I started thinking about animals, all animals.
And that was before you lost Mochi? That was when Mochi was still
alive.
Very much alive.
When she was
very
much alive. And that's how I wrote my first book, about what she told me about healthy eating. She told me basically that a cow could be equated to her, and we wouldn't want to do harm to either one of them, or let alone eat them. And then when she passed, it's more of a spirituality. That what she taught me, some of the things that the sweetness and the goodness that she had, that I always remember that, and that is kind of it's comforting, and that's comforting. And then of course reminiscing and the point that she was with me in my life was a really good time. So it always brings about good feelings thinking about her. And so
it's so rich. It's so rich and multi-leveled and multifaceted that I think we're just barely touching the surface. Absolutely. In terms of the depth of our relationship with each other, with one another, with the world, and with our individual companions. And I don't know if you believe, like I believe, that perhaps we choose one another even pre-birth, that there's some plan, there's some design there to meet one another. And and in general, thinking that animals are coming in our life as teachers, as spiritual teachers. We certainly learn a lot from them.
Nothing's an accident.
Yeah.
I think, and we're all connected, so I don't think it's an accident that we came across, that I got Mochi and maybe you have another dog. I don't think that was an accident.
No, it definitely was not an accident. And, and how detailed and planned that is, I guess we won't know until we die. Maybe we'll have that conversation with them on the other side. Maybe it's broad lessons that we learn from them, like kindness and unconditional love and forgiveness and acceptance. It has to be a lot of that, as well as maybe specific things that we can learn from them as well.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm trying to. I just thought that, and also a lot of laughs, which they bring.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
Joy.
I don't laugh a lot, and I don't laugh enough. And she always gave me a couple laughs a day, irregardless.
So absolutely, they're here to bring us levity and lightness.
Her bones. She would go out there digging up her bones, going after pizza crumbs. I mean. She loved bagels. She would go after, if one of the neighbors dropped a bagel in the street, she zoomed after the bagel crust, all those kind of crazy things.
That's why there's a million videos that we watch online, them doing the silly things and us laughing, and that must be part of their broader purpose, I would say, as well, if anything.
Well, we need humor. We need humor in our life. We're human beings. We need to laugh at things.
And it's a sacred, I think humor is sacred.
Absolutely.
That comes right from the universe.
It's part of being alive, being able to laugh.
Yeah. So do you have any, when you talk in your book, I think, about your relationship with Mochi and communicating with her when you were together, do you have any examples of that you think would really reach people who are watching this, that really stood out to you in terms of you knew it was a communication?
There's formal and informal communication, like actually concentrating and trying to communicate with her, like at a distance or whatever. But one of the things that happened very late, but in the real time, one of the things that happened way at the end, when she was sick, and we went for a second opinion and to a vet. And we went into the vet, and the vet, she was there in the room, and the vet the prognosis was not good. And we came out, and she sat down by the car, and she just kind of, and she was processing it all. She had heard this. Mm-hmm. We had communicated, the doctor had communicated with her. And so she got all that process. And then, and I thought, boy, she really did understand. So I thought, gee, I'm sorry I took her in the vet's office all this time, that the vet and I should have had a conversation aside, not with her present. And then that was the kind of thing that it was always stood out in my mind, her expression.
Yeah.
Of
and you knew by looking at her body language, you're saying to some degree, but it was more than the body language, like you knew, you sensed.
Expression on her face, and you sensed her.
Yeah, like empathy,
right.
Beyond empathy. You could literally almost feel her feelings.
Yes, I could sense her, yes, the compassion, that you could feel her feelings, absolutely. The other time, a funnier time of when I was very new to communication, I was traveling, and I had my suitcase. I was packing my suitcase, and I brought it downstairs. And then we had all this crying and carrying on, and I realized that when she saw the suitcase, that must have confirmed that I was leaving. But I think before then, she knew that I was taking a trip because she could read my mind. And now I don't bother. I bring the suit. I bring the suitcase down anytime, because with my present dog, I don't worry. I figure she's reading my mind. It doesn't matter. But at that point, it was really made an impression on me that when she saw that suitcase, she started crying. So I figured there was definitely communication there.
There's absolutely something, obviously, because they don't communicate through language. Well, they do. They have a language of their own, but it's not this spoken sort of English language in that way. So, but they're still talking to us, you know, maybe through eye contact, but it's beyond that. Even if you have your eyes closed, you can feel them and you sense.
I think it's more than. I talk to Mochi just like I'm talking to you, but I think I agree with the sense that it's not a scent that they're smelling. It's a sense. It goes beyond the hearing and the touching. It's a sense of in them. That's why they're animals.
Absolutely, their sixth sense is heightened.
Yeah,
you know, and they have less blocks, I think, less filters.
Less blocks because they don't have the barriers that we put up.
Yeah, and they don't have any fixed ideas or negative
or judgments,
limiting judgments or beliefs that they don't have that. Yes. And it's also how they survive. It's also part of their survival mechanism as well. And so when we call it telepathy, which seems to be a word that people are like, ooh, what is that? Or that's woo, or whatever that is. But that's what we're saying. There is something to that mind reading that none of us really can hide our thoughts from anybody else. In some way, we're signaling, and it's just a matter of paying attention. Is that other person or is that animal paying attention to what you're signaling?
Exactly. And there is, when you say telepathy, for you and I think would be more I can read your mind and English language is going to come into my mind. But I think with the dog, I think it's not so much she's reading your words and what your language, but she's just reading your sense of how you're feeling, and are you feeling happy thoughts or sad thoughts.
Yeah, so it's not exact words, it's not like images.
Although dogs do understand a lot of words. I mean,
yes, they do learn words.
They do learn words.
Like hundreds of words.
Hundreds of words, yes, what I've read. But I think it's more of a sense of my mother died, and I came back from saying goodbye to her, and she just came very close to me, and it was very close to me that she knew that something had happened that was sad. So it's that kind of thing that maybe she didn't understand exactly, but she knew that there was a big sadness there.
Right.
So I think it's that kind of thing that
it makes us realize that our emotions sort of hang in the air. Like
they're out there.
Our emotions are non-local. They're not. We think my emotion is here, but it's really it's a vibration or it's a frequency, and we're picking up on that to varying degrees. And I think about my dog Miles, who passed away a few years ago. Yeah, but there was absolutely. I had an appointment to take him to be euthanized, but 90 minutes early, and I've heard other people tell these kinds of stories. 90 minutes before we were set to leave. He must have known we were leaving. He chose to go on his own in the middle of the living room on his comfortable bed with my other dog and my husband, all of us just watching him. Like we were all, I really believe he chose that moment rather than going to a cold vet's office, with strangers being handled and having that process. I got to watch him take his last breath, which was devastating, but at the same time, sacred and beautiful. And nobody can tell me that was a coincidence, and that was just happened to be. Yeah.
And
so, yeah.
She made her own, he or she made her own decision and wanted to go with you.
We would ideally, for any of us who are leaving, to go the way we choose to go, that last free will choice. Absolutely. We would all really want that.
My dog died, Mochi died on Independence Day. And that was, she took her independence. I think that too was like, maybe she didn't know it was Independence Day, but
the theme of her life carried right into her final.
But it was definitely that day, And she did basically, not going into the details, but basically after we went to the vet for our last, our second opinion, she did. The vet gave her a couple of weeks or so, and she did make her own decision of when to go.
And I think for anybody watching this, that's a good reminder for them. Try to have that as in the months, weeks that are leading up, when your animal may have a certain diagnosis and it may be imminent that they're going to leave, to ask them for a sign or to feel into that.
Discuss it with them.
Discuss it with them and tell them. That's what I did with Miles, and I feel like that also is why he felt he had permission to go. Not that, like I was okay with it. Not that I was at peace with it, that I accepted it. It was going to happen. And so the timing was such, lining up with that conversation that we had, which I said, go when you want to go. You let me know. I'm here for you until then.
And I think too that but humans know when they're going to go many times. And I think animals pretty much it's the same thing, that they have a sense of that we're coming close to the end. So they know, and if you discuss it, they can make their own decision.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah.
So part of what has us be able to almost be in the same field together, like with our beloveds, sharing this invisible and non-auditory communication between us is, some of it is just sharing time and space, sharing time over time, and sharing space and being under the same roof, is part of that bonding that I know you talk about, and also touch. So talk about the unique role of sharing space with an animal and what that brings to the relationship and touch.
Well, I think sharing space with an animal is just like sharing space with your family.
Yeah.
After a while, you know when somebody's coming downstairs, you know what they're going to have for breakfast. And then in my house, it's a small house, so everybody's very close together anyway. And I think you just kind of unconsciously, you read that person's mind, or you know what that person's going to do, your husband or your kids, you know what they're going to do. And I think it's the same with the dog, that they know when you're coming down, or if you're not coming downstairs. Mochi used to get at the bottom of the stairs and start telling you it's time to come down. So I think that kind of is just part of the whole process. And as far as touching, that's something that humans do. We touch, we need touch, we need hugging and so on. And animals need that too. And I always think the fact that she lived to 15 was because she had such a close relationship with me that you touched her and patted her every day,
Yeah.
So I'm sure you did that with
Oh my God, it's such an accumulation. It feels like every minute we spend with them, we get closer and closer.
Absolutely.
Because there's really no walls between us. Like there are walls, and maybe there need to be some walls, appropriate walls and boundaries and things with other humans, outside of the home especially. But with our animals, it isn't that. We're close, we're touch, we're in each other's breath.
We are.
We're nose to nose. We get down on the floor with them. They sleep in my bed. I don't know if they sleep in your bed, but
They not sleep in my bed.
that's probably good.
Hounds are a little bit, they like their independence, they like their distance. We would lay on the couch together. She would sometimes snuggle her nose in my elbow, but she slept in her own bed.
Mm.
Yeah.
So we want to let people know, of course, the proximity and the time you invest with your beloved is, they're like, well, how do I communicate with? Well, you're already communicating.
Absolutely, you're already.
Through that closeness, you can't not be communicating. And the bond, I would say, is indescribable. And I touch my dogs more than I touch anybody else. And I think we're all touch-starved. And they say we need to be touched to thrive. I'm sorry, this topic's so exciting.
No, unfortunately, it's with COVID. I've become, this all.
Oh, with humans.
Mochi was with me way before COVID, and with COVID, I'm kind of like now. I'm just coming back into touching people and hugging them. It's something that we have to. It's too good to talk about because we need to revitalize that.
Yeah,
at least for myself, I need to revitalize that.
We do need to revitalize that, and it's therapeutic.
Yeah, and it is.
And we could talk for hours about the therapeutic and healing virtues of living with a companion animal. But for now, but I want to talk a little bit before we run out of time. I want to talk a little bit more about the connection between loving dogs, loving our beloved companion animals, and loving other species, loving farm animals, and and veganism and food choices. We want to let people know that veganism is not a diet. It is a way of being in the world that is doing your very, very, very utmost best with all of your choices to make kind choices that do not harm directly or indirectly. It's a stance against animal cruelty in my mind. But how did Mochi help you make that connection even further, and what do you say about that?
Well, again, I changed my diet over 20 years ago for health reasons. I had no thoughts about animals, okay, about the feelings of animals. When I got Mochi, I started thinking about animals in terms of her. You know, like that, seeing a cow and imagining that cow that would be used for food could possibly be my dog. And that to me is totally unacceptable. So that's how she kind of like pictured her as a cow, and if that makes any sense. So that animals became very different looking to me, and I wouldn't want to hurt them. So then, as far as the food choice, you wouldn't be eating them, and as far as your shoe choice, you wouldn't be wearing them, or as a coat. So that was how it was. That somehow she moved over to that animal. So I looked at that animal as if it was her.
I love that.
Making any sense?
That makes complete sense.
And then the thing, unfortunately, and then of course with the pet, we name a pet. They're in our house. We don't name farm animals. They're not our pets.
We group them.
You know, and if they were, we wouldn't be eating them for the most part. But I think that's the big difference between the farm animals, that we don't name them. They're not known to us.
And most people never meet.
That's what I'm saying.
Most people never meet a farm animal up close,
or
one-on-one, eye-to-eye, nose-to-nose.
Or see a live
If they did, it might be different.
Yeah, see a live pig. Most people don't even know what that is. You know?
Yeah, they have tremendous distance.
So I think that's part of it. But then, I don't know, somehow Mochi brought animals, like you're saying, physically closer to me. So that brought animals physically closer.
Yeah.
But I think it's the naming and that someone around.
Well, that's definitely a big part of it. I mean, we have to wonder if animals really could think and talk the way we do, and they are in some way. What would their thoughts be on the fact that we eat them? That we kill them? That even the ones that we don't kill and eat, and the ones we do, what would cows say if they could just voice that? What would dogs say? They would be like, They'd be like, stop it.
I don't know what they would say, but they would not like us.
No.
And
no, we're the monsters. We're the predators.
They would not like us, and I think that's why when I think about eternity, we may not have cows may be in a separate part of eternity where they don't want to be with humans. I mean, I don't know. Maybe they've gotten past that, but I don't think they appreciate us here on Earth because we don't appreciate them.
No. Quite the opposite. What we do is destroy them.
Destroy them. So
it's like we hate them.
Horrible thing.
Yeah.
And I think if people also could meet more cows, like you say, one-on-one, I think that would help you to picture that animal and see how an animal's breathing, how they behave. I don't think people really have experience.
I agree. And it's not, life is not really set up like, by the industries that have the animals captured the way that they do. They're not exactly inviting people in.
They're not. You're shut out.
Not exactly.
They're commodities. Yeah. They're treated as commodities. So I mean, it's just an incredible. It's just situation.
Well, we're just about out of time. I know we want to continue this conversation, but these are wonderful things that you have said, and I want people to read your books and just remember that all animals are sentient, and Mochi gives such wise messages in your books. Do you want to just tell us the name of your books one more time?
Oh, thank you. The first book was What My Dog Told Me About Healthy Eating, or Animal Communication Goes Vegan. And then the second book's easier to remember. It's Letters to Mochi.
Okay.
And the easiest way to obtain them is to go on Amazon.com, type in my name, or type in the book's name, and it'll come right up.
Perfect. Thank you, Marianne. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Michelle. This was fun to be here.
We're wrapping up another enlightening show. If you have compassion for companion animals, please consider extending that compassion to farm animals through your consumer choices, including food choices. Thank you for watching. Follow Positive Energy on YouTube. Check out michellegranberg.com. Join me next time